did say, I was like, look, I'm quite a lot of pain.
And pregnant women are always sore, so it's...
Yeah.
So get on with it. You asked for this.
Hi, welcome to This Is Just Me. This is a podcast for talking about basically anything that happens in life. We have a guest with us today, which is somebody who's from my life, which is why I'm talking instead of Paul at this point, because he usually does the intro.
My lips are sealed.
Yep, he didn't say a word. So this lady here is Claire, and she is a very important part of our lives because she is one of my children's godmother. Ah, see, sprung that on you, Paul. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I did not.
But the reason why Claire is with us today is because Claire is currently pregnant, and we wanted to get the point of view from somebody who is actually pregnant. We've spoken to people who are just thinking about being pregnant. We've spoken to people who may be pregnant in the future, and some that we have our fingers crossed that will be. And today, an actual pregnant person. That's awesome.
It was never going to be one of us, was it? So
no, it wasn't going to be me or you, Paul. And if it was, we would have made a lot of money from that. So thank you, Claire, for being with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we have some questions for you, as this kind of is, but it's going to just be a nice little chat, as always, here on Life Is It Just Me, with Ryan and Paul. See, when I'm in control, I get to be first.
Nah, this is why I don't let you do things. The control freak and me can't handle it.
You know, I know, you can't.
So how do you guys know each other? What's the connection?
Oh, the story. Do you want to tell it, Claire, or do you want me to? You tell it.
Yeah, it's from many moons ago, before we were family people, and we actually sort of focused on our hobbies and things.
Yeah.
How long ago was Carousel with the Siphon District Musical Society?
9 years ago, maybe more, was it?
Like that, yeah. So we did an Amdram show inside of all places. And Ryan fell in love with one of the other cast members, who happens to be one of my good friends, and so obviously been sort of lifelong friends ever since. And as I said earlier, godmother to his beautiful son Jackson. And yeah, that's where that has started from, and a good friendship lasts a lifetime. So
it does.
I hope so.
Which is why you're friends with Paula and not me.
You're friends with Paula, but you're
of course, yeah.
By default.
I know, I'm just a +1. It's okay. I'm used to that by now.
Yeah, you can accept that.
I can.
Claire, we're here to talk about your pregnancy and all the things that go along with that. This whole first season is all about the decision as to whether to have kids or not. And having spoken to Ryan briefly before we came on, I know that there was a lot of planning that went into you becoming pregnant.
Yes.
Tell me about the planning. I love a plan. I love a list. I'm sure.
Well, here's the thing. Let's give a bit of a background. You're both teaching backgrounds, because Paul's a high school teacher. Education. All right. Sorry. My goodness. Get it right. All right. So I do feel like you're cut from the same cloth in the planning department. Which is again why Paul usually takes the lead on everything, because he can't give up.
No. It's in the genes. It's in the education. Paul is the same. Your wife's the same. I know she is.
Yeah,
she is very much.
You need a plan. Don't know how people get through life without a plan.
Well, how many lists do you think I made for today?
5.
Yeah, probably about that. Yeah.
and all the post-it notes around his bed.
Yes.
He just he's a post-it note fiend. That's his system.
Started with something that you'd already done, just so you could cross it off and have the satisfaction of that one sorted. It's on the list.
See, when you said cut from the same cloth, Ryan, there couldn't be a better expression.
I knew that.
What sort of planning went into the decision for you to have a kid? I almost went to call you Paula there. You're not Paula, you're Claire.
But one of the photos on Facebook when you stood next to that Christmas tree, Claire, I was like, I had to double take because I scrolled down and then I was like, whoa, when was Paula out next to, what's going on? And then I realized it was you. So there is a very much, it's like your sisters. There is a family similarity.
Yeah, definitely. There's a sort of in-joke between myself. So the Paula's sister, Stephanie, and I look more like Paula and more like Stephanie than either of them look like each other. So the joke that I'm the sort of missing link in
Sounds like it.
the siblings. But yeah, sorry, I digress. Planning for pregnancy. Yeah, I mean, it's a big decision. It's not something that I would have gone into lightly. My husband's also a couple of years younger than me, and that had to be taken into account as well, because I was ready to be a mum from sort of late 20s, early 30s. He wasn't ready to be a parent at that point, and it certainly wasn't something that was going to be pushing upon him, because, you know, if you're not ready to be a parent, that's never going to end well, I don't think. So just like a lot of kind of like wee chats as you go along, just like, oh, you know, how are you feeling about this? And if there was a wee sort of family moment, you sort of, oh, it'd be nice, you know, like, oh, how many years could that be by the time we get the house and da da da. And it was all, a lot of it was really financial, which is so unromantic. But
True.
You know, both of us were very much in the, we've been together now, it'll be 8 years at the end of the year. So we very much had this sort of, quite a traditional, but there was a reason behind this sort of timeline of events. It's like, okay, so we need to see each other for a good couple of years, and then we need to live together for at least a year before we get engaged, because that's when the wheels come off.
Everybody says it.
Yeah, so it's like, so we'll do that year at least, and then we'll get engaged, and then that takes like a year to plan a wedding, so that's another wee bit, and then, you know, you want to enjoy being married for a bit, so that's another year at least, you know. And that sort of kind of created the sort of timeline for us. So by the time we got to the stage where we were actually ready to try, my health wasn't great, and
wow.
actually ended up having I had a rumbling appendix, they call it, for a year, and they didn't know that that's what it was. So we got to the stage where we were we were buying our house, which I'm speaking from now, which was going to be the big forever family home. You know, we'd been saving, there's a week in a nest egg of saving going, so that's maternity leave money, we'll just chip into that, because that'll be coming at some point, you know. And then when we got to the stage, we were like, right, let's try for kids. And I mean, I was in and out of hospital with these sort of pain episodes that were unexplained, and messing about with different medications like the pill and stuff, which was obviously going to have a huge effect on fertility. And so yeah, so that kind of was a bit of a curveball. That wasn't on my plan, I have to say, and I was quite unhappy.
I was going to ask about that, because
how dare that get in the way?
Yeah,
Did they not know what you'd planned?
How dare life throw me a curveball? And not expect, in my mid-30s as well, because everyone knows that your 30s is where your health just gets better.
Well, you would expect so, and even more so in your 40s, I imagine.
So that was a wee fly in the ointment, shall we say. But as I say, I mean, it was a year out of our lives of, okay, we're going to have to put this on the back burner, we need to focus on this instead. But then pretty much as soon as that was sorted, and there was the kind of recovery side of it, and things had kind of settled down, it's like, right, okay, let's give it a go. And it was about 6 months of trying before I fell pregnant. And even that was starting to think on me a wee bit, because I had that. Well, I'll tell you why, because if you, the official term, no one's had the guts to say it to me, to my face yet, but it's on the paperwork and you can see it on the websites and things. If you have a baby past 35, you're qualified as a geriatric pregnancy. So there was always that little, as I was creeping towards 35, oh, there's a reason this is some kind of cut-off. I don't know why, but the medical profession obviously thinks this is a thing. And I was turning 35, I turned 35 this year, so we started trying, in January, and I got pregnant in the summer, and my birthday's October, so we were creeping towards that mark, and I'm thinking...
But crucially, you missed it. You just got in before.
Just got in. Just made the cut.
Well
so
done.
Yeah, so even that was like the first kind of 3 months, it was like, this, you know, it'll take a wee while, and then that's when you get sucked into down the rabbit hole of pregnancy related things on the internet. That would be my only advice to anyone trying to get pregnant at the moment, is steer clear of Google Mumsnet chats where there's acronyms for everything that don't make any sense, and the women are just so anxious, and that comes across in all of these chats, and they're actually, I think they're quite toxic. They're not meant to be. They're trying to be really supportive, but actually I didn't gain anything from them, put it that way, other than more stress and sleepless nights about it, which obviously is not conducive to trying for a baby. So no. I would steer clear.
What sort of impact, what sort of things did you read and see that it sort of impacted on you and caused more anxiety and sleepless nights. And
I mean, basically, you were dying of cancer or something if anything that you had, or the slightest issue, and you had polycystic ovaries, or you needed to go and get tested for this, or you better check because that sounds like a sign of da 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 da. And there was never anything. In the same way that the whole TripAdvisor thing of you keep scrolling until you get to the bad review, you don't take in any of you just need to relax.
Of course.
And trust that this will happen. And if it doesn't, there will come a point where you go, okay, you seek medical intervention. There's a pathway for that. We're very lucky with the NHS. You get a few goes IVF. There was none of the level-headed, you're more likely to get pregnant if you've got lots of oxytocin and happy hormones in your body, as opposed to the keep reading and just fill yourself with cortisol. That'll make a baby, and there's far more of that than the nice stuff. And you're seeking an answer.
You filter it, yeah.
So thingy about it. And I mean, I've got a friend who's a midwife. My mum's a retired midwife. I have people on tap to ask about, but I felt embarrassed to be that anxious person asking about the tiniest little thing. So that settled more as the pregnancy's gone. It was certainly the first, I think as well, because I'm one of the later ones of my friends, and most of my friends have all had their kids I pretty much they're done. They're done with the babies. They're on to the next. They're on to school runs. And so I've kind of seen pretty much everything that can go wrong as well. So, I think if you're in your early 20s, you've got a bit of blissful ignorance, and you think as soon as you see that line on the stick, yay, I'm pregnant. I know that that's not what that means. I know that line just means your body's making that hormone. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a baby in there, because I know someone who's had a chemical pregnancy. I know that you can get to your 12-week scan and you could have been making this hormone this whole time, and actually something's happened around about week 7 or 8. Everything's stopped, and there's still a baby in there, or they're at the start of one, but it's not made it to the 12-week scan. So
sure.
All the kind of things that can and do go wrong quite regularly as well. They're not once in a blue moon kind of things, are fairly common. I was aware of all of them, knew somebody firsthand who'd had an experience like that. So it was quite hard to enjoy that first 12 weeks, because as far as I was concerned, anything could go wrong. It was my first pregnancy as well. It wasn't like we'd been trying for ages and had lots of failed miscarriages and things. This was the first one. I thought, well, chances are it won't stick, just statistically. There might be something going on here. So it was quite hard to enjoy that first bit. Although I did have a chat with myself round about week 9 or 10. I was just like, look, something could go wrong here, but you're not going to be any less devastated if you don't enjoy this time, or if you do enjoy it, you're still going to be heartbroken. So you might as well try and enjoy it and make this a positive time rather than being negative preemptively, just in case.
Yeah.
So that helped. But that was just me just sort of being like, right, come on, my car. So I sell it. You need to shake to yourself. But yeah, it's a funny old business, pregnancy, to say.
It is.
Yeah, it must be, and I don't know. It's something that I'm not sure, Ryan. Obviously, you have sort of lived through it with Paula, I guess. But I guess that without being the actual pregnant one, you can never truly get a grasp of the sort of things that you must go through.
I think men do have a kind of idyllic perception of pregnancy. We don't have all of the foibles that are included, but I did see what Paula went through. Claire can vouch for that. She saw a lot of it as well. And did having seen Paula go through pregnancy put your mind at rest, but it definitely wouldn't have. Did it? Was there anything from that for you that you'd taken away from our experience of the babies?
I think from everybody's, because I mean, with Paula, certainly she was one of the people who had both of the 2 rougher pregnancies that I've ever come across. And the same with, I mean, actually, one of the reasons it took us a bit longer to start trying as well, because Dan's brother and sister-in-law have got, at one point, had 3 kids under 3. They had a wee girl and then they had twins. and they were in New Zealand. They'd just moved and things, so their support network was down. We went over there and stayed with them for like about 3-4 weeks or whatever, and it just seemed like hell. You know, it wasn't enjoyable for anybody. You know, it just seemed awful, and that I had enough wherewithal at that point to be able to say to them, this isn't going to be us. You know that. Like, we're not going to be on the other side of the world with no family. You know, you've just started a new job, which was the case for his brother. You know, we're not going to have 3 kids under 3 for one thing.
Wow.
It's like, this is not indicative of new kind of parenting sort of thing. But, you know, he got a fright with that and was just like, nah, we're not doing this anytime soon. Just straight, and he's really good with kids. I would say Dan's a lot better with babies than I am. He's just a real natural with wee ones, and that's not a thing for him. But that was a shock to his system. But I think the thing that from everybody, and this is the sort of really trite, sort of eye-rolly part of it, but if it was that awful, no one would ever have more than one child.
Sure.
You know, it's the same as like when folk get tattoos. It's like, well, it's not that sore because everyone like ends up getting 5. Do you know? Like, if it's worth it, you'll do it again. And some people choose to have one child, and that's what works for them, and great. But the majority of folks do end up having 2-3 kids, and because that works for their family situation or whatever. And I think that was something that I've kind of clung on to. Is that, yeah, okay, it's going to be tough, but it's worth it in the end. You know, there's a reason people go through the tough stuff to get to the good stuff, because it outweighs the nausea and the sleepless nights and all the other fun stuff. But yeah, I did clock it with everyone, but everyone's pregnancy is different. We've got folk who've sailed through them, and you wouldn't even have known. Like, you see them from the back and they turn around and they've got this massive bump, and you know, they look exactly the same.
Still running marathons and still hill climbing, and you're like,
I would have loved to be one of those people.
Still in the gym lifting weights. Yeah, all these ones.
Hilarious. The fact that I thought that was ever going to be something I'd be able to continue doing is laughable. Like Paul says, you don't know me, but like I do enjoy the gym, and my main thing is like very heavy weights and stuff.
Not been the case.
If you'd asked me before we started trying, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try. There'll come a point where I'll not be able to, and I'll need to drop my weights, and I'll need to amend exercise and stuff. But like, I'll keep going with that, as long as I can. You'll
go down to those really small weights that you kind of like, then nothing. Yeah, we'll just continue with that.
Baby weights will be fine. I have not set a foot in a gym.
Wow.
Lockdown aside, but
I was going to say COVID, but no, it's not even.
Not just that, I felt awful. Not like for the first 4 or 5 weeks, it was totally fine. It was just a bit like, oh, this is a bit. I can feel something's going on here. Just that way, you know, like if you feel like you're getting the flu or something, you're just kind of hanging for something's going on. And then, like from week 6, I would say up to about week 15, was just absolutely useless. I mean, it's hilarious when they talk. This is something that I definitely want to highlight in this podcast. Everything in pregnancy is downplayed. Everything.
Oh, wow.
You know, so they say things like you get a bit tired. I mean, that just rips my knitting when I hear this. Get tired. I couldn't walk up the stairs. You know, it's like, is that like when you've got the flu and you're like commando crawling?
No energy, nothing.
Because you've just been, it feels like someone's just stuck a needle in you and just pulled all of your adrenaline out of your system. And you're reading all these nice pregnancy apps going, you might be feeling a bit tired in your first trimester. Yeah, I'm a bit tired. I can't
say the least.
Can I feed myself? Like, okay, that's a good descriptor. So,
I have seen some of your pregnancy memes on your Facebook.
Yeah. Particularly low moment. But yeah, because I thought I'm going to the gym and doing anything, even like body weight exercises. I was like, can I? It's just my body's just said, absolutely no chance. You're doing the bare minimum here to get through the day. But that doesn't last, and that's the roller coaster of it.
Up and down.
You know, you wake up one day and your body's doing something else. It's like, oh, okay, this is what we do now. All right, how long is that going to last? Maybe a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months. Then
does it feel like your body's betraying you? Do you like, I don't know who you are anymore?
I mean, I've been trying to do like all these like hypnobirthing, trying to be more positive about it. growth mindset, and blah, 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 blah. I'm not particularly airy-fairy about these things, but there's science within it. So, you know, I've bought into it a wee bit.
Sure.
But, you know, it's like they do all these things, these affirmations. So you obviously say them in your head and to try and kind of build up this, essentially create a happy memory that doesn't really exist, but then your body responds as if it does.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of them is, my body is perfectly designed to birth my baby. I'm like, doesn't it feel like it's perfectly designed for pregnancy? So labour.
That's another thing.
Thinking there's going to be some complications, but okay, sure. I'll keep saying that to myself.
You sound skeptical, but does it work? Has it had any? Can you feel any
I feel
positive?
more empowered in terms of my rights as a pregnant woman, certainly. That's something that certainly from stories from friends of their birth story or their kind of pregnancy journey, and feeling that, you know, they've just had to do things, they've had to have interventions that actually they weren't comfortable with, or they've gone down a route that they didn't really understand, and actually they've come out of the birth and it's actually been a really traumatic experience, and then that's sort of taken a long time for them to get their heads around what actually happened. And then, you know, you've got that guilt of the fact that you've not instantly bonded with your baby, and then you're down the route of postnatal depression, and it's all quite a negative experience. And a lot of that has to do with just not really knowing what you've agreed to and feeling coerced into things almost.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, one of the most powerful sentences I got on a course, and this wasn't even a hypnobirthing one, it was an NCT, antenatal class, and basically they were saying, you know, in any other circumstance, if someone put their hand inside you without your consent, is sexual assault. So if a midwife has coerced you into a vaginal examination that you didn't actually understand why you were getting, or say, yes, I agree to this, or, you know, remotely comfortable with it, you know, for some reason it's like, well, you're pregnant, so you've just handed your body over to someone else. And I think that's been quite a powerful experience, that whole sort of unpicking of all of that and thinking, oh, actually, okay, so you can challenge stuff, you can say, no, I don't want X, Y, and Z, because there is just this assumption that you go through these steps in labour of, so you turn up at the hospital, they'll do the examinations, check how dilated you are, then they pop you on a monitor, and then you're stuck to your bed for 2 hours and you can't move, that slows down labour, and then you end up getting an induction because your contractions have slowed down, obviously, because you stopped moving, and you know, it's just this sort of ongoing thing of events. And, you know, you can end up having a C-section because it's the best thing for you or the baby. You can end up wanting your induction because you're absolutely scunnered and you're just done and you want this baby out no matter what. But the difference is that you understand what that means, what you're consenting to,
and why you've got to that stage.
Exactly. And I don't think that's been the case for certainly not every woman I know.
It wasn't the first when we had Jackson. Definitely wasn't the case. As well as, you know, we had that 3-day birth problem, and it was a problem because I think the hospital let us down. Like we trusted them to do what they do, you know, and we didn't know. We were first time parents, and we had no idea what we were supposed to be expecting in that situation. Paula's mum was a nurse, but not for a long time, so like things have moved on in the profession, and she was never like directly involved with babies, so like of course she knew, and she'd had babies, but didn't know the process, the modern process for having babies. And we had no idea. We didn't know that we could ask for like oxytocin to induce. We didn't know that there was options available to us that we could ask for. We just did not have that information. Nobody shared that with us, and we didn't know that if we got to a certain point that there was solutions that weren't being offered to us. And they were just, no, we'll just keep waiting, it'll come, this is normal, this is natural. And we're like, all right, okay, fine. 48 hours in, we're like, are you sure this is normal and natural? Because it doesn't feel it. So, and yeah, and it wasn't until we got to like the best part of day 3, and they're like, oh no, you know what we'll do? We'll give her some oxytocin, maybe that'll help her on. And we're like, are you actually kidding? So like looking back now, I am very angry about that.
No wonder.
because we knew about it the second time, and we said the second time and went to the hospital, like, look, we had this issue, it was a different hospital, so we had this issue the first time round, and could we please, if there's any signs of stalling whatsoever, please just, get that in oxytocin, get induced now, please. And the woman's like, yeah, no problem. Yeah, obviously, like, well, especially with your history, but even that would have been available anyway. And we were like, what? So
But then had you not said that, would it have been?
I don't know if it had happened just as a matter of course.
Sure.
She was open to it because we knew about it, but the first time we had no clue. And then what you were talking about, Claire, about the violation of a person's body, the amount of people that came into examine Paula over a 3-day period, different doctors, different nurses. I was angry because they'd used a plastic stick with a hook on it to kind of break Paula's waters fully. Yeah. And they scratched Jackson's head with the stick. So, like, there were so many things that I was just like, I'm not happy about this. So, like, I mean, they could have took his eye out or something. If they were able to scratch his head, surely they could take his eye out. Like, that's how I think about that. And as a parent, you get more and more protective, especially when they're actually here. I'm more angry about it now than I was then because I'm more informed and because I already have that parental gene in me now. I'm like, angry.
Risk assessing, as you put it.
Yeah, but it sounds like, obviously, Claire, you're well better informed than we were first time round, and like, all the things.
I think only because I'm a wee bit later in the game. I would have been in exactly the same position if I'd had kids in my mid-20s the way most of my friends did. I wouldn't have known any more than them, and it's just been by luck that we've just come to that little bit later. And I've learned from other folks' experiences. A lot of the kind of hypnobirthing things has moved on as well, because even 10 years ago, it was very airy-fairy, eye-rolly by the midwives. If you come anywhere near us with a birth preference plan, you might as well just rip up that and chuck it. That's shifted a bit, certainly. Obviously not so much with the old school midwives. And I
thought you were going to say that.
But generally speaking, the newer wave of midwives are a lot more understanding of that. Just a generally more empathetic approach, because I was having a good moan the other day about if you are not feeling so great in your pregnancy and you're giving it, oh my God, like where the hell did my ankles go when you're looking at them? Oh God, like just another thing, and you feel like you're moaning. You don't really want anyone to come back to you and say, oh well, it's a good thing it's not preeclampsia.
Yeah, well.
Just, okay, you're right, it is, but see in that moment, don't just say, oh, I know it's rubbish.
Yeah.
Just validate me. Just pat my head and just give me the soft touch. I don't need any of your realistic perspective.
Yeah, the other one is the midwives are bad for this one, I have to say, the stock phrase of, the joys of pregnancy. Like,
thanks for that. This is your job.
Sentence is basically, okay, well, you wanted to get pregnant, so...
Yeah, so this is your fault.
You wanted to get pregnant, so here you are, this is pregnancy and all its
glory.
What
do you expect? Enjoy.
Yeah. Which, in another frame of mind, when you're having a better day, you'd be like, okay. This is the call, my body's doing what it needs to do, this is fine. But when you're in that low moment, which when you're in hospital is when you don't tend to be at your best, you're at your most vulnerable, you don't really want anyone giving it, the joys of, you just want them to say, I know, it's tough.
Yeah, I hear you. I know. You'll get through it.
Yeah, exactly. We're here, we'll help you, So I think that's starting to shift as well, which is nice, because empathy is a big thing, and it's good to start hearing more of that kind of language now.
I can understand that the empathy kind of goes away with the more experienced midwives, because they've delivered 50,000 babies and they're like, so
here comes another one.
Here we go again. So job lethargy, I suppose.
Sure. Everything, and nothing's a shock, and yeah, absolutely. Well, I think once you get to that stage in your career with midwifery, you're just like, water off a duck's back for anything. Yeah. But it's remembering that, okay, you've delivered umpteen years. This is the only one maybe for this woman who's never been in this position before, potentially never been in a hospital before. I mean, your younger mums, this might be the first time they've been in a hospital since they were born in one, if they've not had any other medical things. And hospitals are not calming, happy places.
There's always noises, beep, beep,
especially during the night when you're trying to sleep.
Yeah, it never stops beeping. You can't turn any lights off because there's always at least emergency lighting.
Yeah.
there's all, as you say, Ryan, there's always people in and out.
Yeah.
It's a different person every time. You explain your story again with a different person every single time. They naturally get you really, really anxious, and you want to have a nice calming birth, but you start off in a state of about up to here before you even step in the door, really. Jeez. And then you go into this really stressful environment, and what you need is for everyone to just sort of
bring it down,
bring the serenity.
Yeah, totally. Whereas if you go into that sort of like, right, okay, so hop on the bed and we're just going to examine you, blah, 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 and you're just going,
yeah,
and you don't advocate for yourself, and you don't say why do you need to check out, like, if you know how much I'm contracting, do you need to know how much I'm dilated? Does it make a difference? Most women are quite happy for you to find out, because it kind of tells them where they are, but you don't need to. And I think it's the difference is just being able to make that choice for yourself, and having the strength to say that when you've got a really pushy midwife giving it, right, this is what we're up to now. You think,
doctor. I mean, the doctors can be as bad. They just come in and they're just like, because they come out, their time is limited, and they're like, right, just let's get on with this, and like they even speak to you. They're like, I'm busy. I'm supposed to be in surgery. I'll just be like, give me a second. Like, it's like, what? Paula was 4 centimeters dilated for like most of that first pregnancy, first birth. So and she was checked a lot. Like I felt violated for her with the amount of people that came in.
Really? We're going back in there again? Okay.
Yeah, honestly, really? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was pretty harrowing as a first time dad. Yeah.
Claire, you were speaking about the
nonchalant.
Yeah, the nonchalantness sometimes of sort of medical staff, midwives, etc. from time to time. Has there been anything up to this point where you have questioned something based on the experience that you've had with others? For example, Ryan and Paula's pregnancies, or is there anything in the future that you think, well, when this happens, if this happens, I'm definitely going to sort of pose more questions or kick up more of a fuss, if that's the right expression?
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of been doing that a wee bit more recently as well. I mean, I know you can't believe I'm a best planner in the works for them.
No
no idea where that came from. No.
However, no, I mean, like, genuinely, I've been really quite fortunate through this whole pregnancy. Anything I've had has been fairly standard stuff. Nothing sinister going on. And about 5-6 weeks ago now, so the wheel started coming off a wee bit, and started getting like quite a lot of like pain in my ribs and things, which, as I say, avoid Google, but I'm going, what could that be? And I kind of thought, I was like, well, that is that's pregnancy, that's just pressure, things are expanding, But then started to get like really breathless with it, pains in my chest and stuff. And at that point, I was only maybe 24, 25 weeks, something like that. And I thought, it's a bit early for like this level of discomfort. So like I left it maybe 3 or 4 days. And then I texted my mum and just sort of said, like, just to check, I would expect this kind of level of discomfort at some point. I'd be a bit early in the game, and straight away she was just like, phone triage. She was like, don't text me, phone triage. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was sitting watching Bake Off, fully expecting them to, have the wee phone consultation and them go, yeah, don't worry about it, just, prop yourself up, you'll be grand, I mean, I was in Forth Valley within 10 minutes, getting hooked up for ECGs and booked in for every sort of test under the sun. So certainly from that perspective, you couldn't fault them for not being thorough. Sure. It was very much, if there was anything to do with your heart or chest or whatever, it was like, right, well, let's find out what's going on here. So certainly from that perspective, I felt very well looked after. What then came from it, thankfully there wasn't anything sinister going on here. I got my chest x-rayed and echoes on my heart and all this kind of thing. And it is literally just, I've got quite a short torso and my baby's measuring quite big. Whether it actually will be big or not is, you never know till it actually comes out. But things are just a bit squished to the next sort of level. So everyone gets a bit squished, things are fine. It's a case of heat pads, ice packs, stretching, move about, just grit your teeth and deal with it till you get to term kind of thing. But that really was kind of where I got to. So once they were happy that I wasn't having a heart attack or a pulmonary embolism, I was like, right, so that's you're grand, away you go. And so,
off you pop.
And so I got home with like, yeah, but it still hurts. Like, the reason I phoned in was because I'm in a lot of pain, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I left it for a wee bit and just sort of did my own kind of research and went, like, paid for a private osteopath. But I mean, that's like, it's 50 quid a go, you know. And I'm in the position where, okay, I can make that sacrifice to pay for that because I recognise how important it is. Not everybody's got that option. At no point did anyone say, would you like a referral to physio through NHS? You know, like, no, that was never mentioned at any point. So I've sort of fudged along with it. And then my last antenatal, I did sort of say, because I thought, you know what, I don't know if this is going to be a thing further down the line, you know, when it comes to the actual labour, what I'm going to physically be able to do. Because certainly in terms of positioning, like, I can't really sit for more than 5 minutes at a go without getting
doing
really,
well.
Yeah, I'm standing. So I'm doing
are you? Wow, sorry.
Yeah, no, there was no chance this was going to happen. It's why the big window is the only place I've got a desk that's high enough.
I see.
So I thought, well, if I do this on myself, there'll be nowhere in my notes of actually that this is a thing, because I've not gone through any kind of NHS side of it. So, like, the last antenatal I did kind of say, like, it's like a self-referral thing. So they gave me the number. I've had a consultation, and it was quite reassuring because it was like, okay, at least I'm doing the right stuff, and, you know, it's covered, and at least it's in my notes now, you know. But yeah, it's interesting that if you don't have a wee bit of kind of your own knowledge enough to challenge anything, or just kind of push it that little bit more, that you just like, you'll be fine, you know. Because even, like, I was quite grumpy the other night because I was reading an app now. Everything's on an app. You don't get your wee book anymore to take your notes.
Save the environment.
There's an app for that.
Absolutely, we're all for Ecomi is a terrible app, but and when I went from antenatal, so usually when I go, I just listen, you know, how are you feeling kind of overall? I'm like, yeah, you know, like, generally well, which is the case. But for this one, I did say, I was like, look, I'm in quite a lot of pain, you know. You know, I'm just wondering, is there anyone I could speak to, And so then I checked my notes from that meeting, or from that appointment, sorry, and it says, you know, Claire is feeling well today. And there's absolutely no mention of the fact that the first thing I said was,
wow.
I thought, that's not what I said. I actually didn't at any point say I was feeling well. I thought... So
their impression of you was, she's well. She's fine.
Yeah, like that's what they've heard, because as far as they're concerned, the bloods are good. The blood pressure's always spot on, so that's.
And pregnant women are always sore, so it's.
Yeah.
So get on with it. You asked for this.
That's not quite what I said, and I don't like being misrepresented.
No. That must be so frustrating when you specifically went out of your way to make the point.
Yeah.
That's the only reason for the phone call.
Well, yeah.
The only reason I brought this up was because I wanted to speak about the whole physio thing. So yeah, it's quite interesting that if it's not deemed important, in inverted commas,
medically important,
yes,
by medical standards, then it can be quite, people can be quite dismissive about it, which I understand. You know, I can see how that can happen, but as I say, it's, you know, it's a big deal to me.
Of course.
I can't walk, or, you know, I can't get up out of a chair, or can't sleep, or whatever, you know. So yeah, it's interesting the varying degrees of what gets attention.
Sure.
And then, anything under that, you're on your own, figure it out. We'll see you in 10 weeks.
They must see a lot of people though who have like either a low pain threshold, or are just are naturally anxious people, and they get phone, like, whereas you would go to Google or speak to your mum, or like these people are picking up the phone every time. So there's another thing. Is this normal? You can imagine that on it, like, looking at it from a health professional's point of view, they must just be like, oh yes, it's normal, okay. Yeah, exactly. Please just Google it, use the app.
I'm feeling a bit sick. I'm pregnant. I'm 6 weeks pregnant and I've got a bit of nausea. Yeah, really?
Honestly.
With that, we can maybe understand.
But yeah, it's frustrating from your point of view to specifically phone up, knowing yourself, knowing that you're not somebody who gives into kind of ailment and control. You're just like, yeah, phoned up for a specific reason and it's not even in my notes. What? Yeah. That must be really bad for you and for Paul, because I can tell his note taking right now is notes were not good enough. Notes were not taken well.
That's why I would be like, it's an interesting sort of point, or lesson almost, in that you really do have to sort of push it. If you really want your point made, you really have to reinforce it. But even then, I feel for people who maybe aren't as kind of maybe as confident or as forward and would feel like they have the ability to challenge that. It must be, but the path of least resistance is just to be like, oh well, yeah, they must not deem it important enough. So yeah, maybe it isn't.
They must know. This is their job. They know.
Yeah,
they must know.
Yeah.
I'm being silly.
If I was 10 years younger, that would be the approach that I'd be taking. Just from pure sort of life experience and being a bit later into this and whatever that. I mean, they must hate it when they see a teacher, but a teacher come in, they'll be like reading the notes going, oh God, here we go.
They're going to bring the post-it notes and the whiteboard pens.
You know,
they're going to write my report card afterwards.
Totally.
my review's not going to be good.
Yeah.
Just read it on Yelp, see what I thought of yourself.
Yeah. That's actually a good segue, I guess, because I really want to ask this. I've spoken before in previous podcasts. I'm towards my late 20s. My partner's a couple of years younger, and sort of in that middle ground, we're both teachers, and we don't know whether we're going to have kids. We're not sure yet. We're sort of undecided. And teaching, or what I do, is a huge part of my life. I love what I do, and I put a lot of my time and passion into it. And a big part of it for me, a big worry for me, is the sort of balance. You know, right now I feel like a huge chunk of me goes into that part of my life, and I've got enough left over to sort of, you know, do all the other things I want to do.
Get through the day.
Yeah, the balance is there, and I really, really worry about that going all out. Things like even just speaking to Ryan or any parent, and the random occurrences that happen, the things that go that just totally knock off your plans. And how do you balance that? Is that something that has played in your mind in your planning, and how do you see that going forward as well? Doing a similar job to me.
Yeah, it was interesting because we have planned so that financially I can take the full year of maternity leave if I want to.
Good.
I'm very interested to see how long I'll last, if I'm being honest, because I genuinely, I think it could go either way. I don't know how I'm going to be with this idea of an identity of mum, because Ms. McGar, for so long, I've had really nothing, like career has been my big main driver throughout my entire adult life. And I've worked very hard to become that person and to have that reputation and to be known within my local authority as someone who knows what they're talking about and is skilled and all these kind of things. And the thought of all of a sudden being mum and that's it, I think, I wonder how I'm going to cope with that. Am I going to love it? Am I going to absolutely flourish and go, you know what, being a mum's the best job in the world. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. You know, or will I just be staring at this baby going, you robbed me of my identity.
Yeah.
The regrets, the disillusion.
Just a sort of like internal drama about it. And I genuinely don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. So
we'll have to check in with you once baby's here.
May.
Okay. I'm going to write that in the calendar right now.
First May, Claire had a breakdown.
An existential crisis.
Yeah, totally, and that's the thing. And I genuinely don't know which way it's going to go. We've been very lucky in terms of the fact that both me and my husband have been able to work home through this whole thing. So there's been a bit of kind of flexibility in terms of certainly for the pregnancy. I got away with not telling very many people for ages because all I had to do was turn my camera off and sit there with my bucket next to me and my head like this on the desk for all the Zoom meetings.
I'm still listening.
Yeah, I totally. And there's people who I'm finishing up for maternity leave at Christmas, and you know, there's people who I emailed yesterday who didn't know.
Wow.
Because they only see this bit of me.
Yeah.
You know, I've done since March.
It's the benefit of working from home, I guess.
Yeah, so there certainly has been some benefits of it, and that's going to continue for my husband certainly for the next wee while. So
okay.
I think that'll be interesting because he'll probably get, I think it's like 2 weeks paternity, 2 weeks annual leave they can bunch together. It'll be very interesting to see how that balance goes, because I think it'll be really hard for him to hear me with the baby somewhere in the house and he's up in his wee cupboard with the door shut, you know, trying to work or whatever.
Sure.
And also for me to not come and help me.
Your turn.
Yeah. Honestly, I really need you. Please come.
Yeah. Whereas if he was at his office in Glasgow, that wouldn't be an option. He'd be at his work and he would not be reachable or accessible in any way, you know. So it'll be interesting to see how that working from home balance has an impact. It could be helpful, it could be detrimental. But yeah, it'll be interesting just in general with the whole balancing. I think you just, from what I can tell with everyone, they figure it out.
Yeah, they seem to.
Certainly not an easy transition.
No. Did any part of, as you say, wanting to build up that reputation, your professional life, did any part of that have an impact and perhaps delay your decision to have a child until the stage you're at in your life now?
Wanting kids nearly delayed a professional decision, because we were starting to have the conversation about starting a family when I moved authority to East Lothian Council.
Right.
And that was 2 years ago now-ish. And I nearly didn't take a promotion because I thought, don't want to move authority and just be in the door and just start that network and getting to know people, be in the door 6 months and then announce that I'm pregnant, you know, which you're entitled to do.
Of course, but yeah.
But I thought, am I comfortable with that? Should I just stick it out where I am? You know, there's going to be this shift in my life soon anyway. You better to do that when you've got a job that's right next door as well, because at that point I worked in Falkirk Council and my commute was 7 minutes.
Wow.
Nice. It's a long journey. That's a long time.
So now you're talking an hour and 15 through Edinburgh bypass, you know. So
Jeez.
that nearly, like, I was like, but then it was my husband actually who said, you can't plan for something that hasn't happened yet. You know, it's like, yeah, like this is your being sensible, forward thinking, dad.
Yes.
Like, but you're not pregnant yet. We don't know how long it'll take for you to get pregnant. You, like, don't plan for something that hasn't happened. And thank goodness, because obviously, as I say, when we were ready to start trying, we were a year later than that anyway. So I've had 2 years in a job that I absolutely love, building up that network, and I'm perfectly happy now of where that is and how that's worked out. But that would be another piece of advice for anyone who's trying to get pregnant at the moment. If there are other elements of their life that they're planning around a potential pregnancy, don't put off other stuff on the off chance that you might get pregnant, because you can't guarantee when that's going to happen.
Sure.
You know, the rest of your life doesn't stop while you're trying to get pregnant, unfortunately.
Yeah, and for someone who plans, or was that difficult to get your head around? Because obviously, again, you want to be in control of that situation, you want to be in control of that decision-making process, and to not know if you're going to have a baby anytime soon, or to decide, maybe I won't take that job because I do want to be a mum. And was that hard to contend with? Did you find that difficult?
I think because the job was so different as well, because I'd gone from sort of like outreach kind of teaching, which was very, very flexible, like probably the most flexible you could have at teaching level. So it was ideal for if I had a young family, it would have been an absolute cinch to try and balance sort of working home life like that, you know. Whereas this was going to be big commute, you know, office-based kind of thing. Good thing was that I could work from home, obviously. But this pre-COVID, you still had the opportunity to work from home. I had flexi time, but I was giving up then summer holidays, so that was a big thing.
Oh wow!
I thought, jings, you know, like I had to have that chat with myself. Loads of people have kids and they don't have summer holidays like teachers. Like they figure it out.
But when you're used to it,
but exactly when you're used to it, you think, oh, jings, how do you get 6-7 weeks of childcare sorted? You know, but yeah, it was a usual pros and cons number of, okay, so what outweighs and I'm really glad that I did it. It was absolutely the right decision for me, both professionally and as a family. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You just kind of have to go with it, and then
it is what it is now.
Your decision.
Yeah. Do you think about that? Do you worry about that, about going forward once the baby's here, and how you're going to balance that new life now, especially as we get...
You just saw your face there, Claire. I'm sorry. It's just like,
That's like, it was all I thought about.
Yeah, I bet. Especially once we get through COVID, you know, and think we start to go back to the new normal, I guess. How much does that play in your mind?
After, you know, so say I do take the year of maternity leave, things will look very different by the time I'm returning to work.
Fingers crossed. They should.
They should.
hope.
Oh God, can you imagine?
I know.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see actually what I'm coming back to for one
Yes.
thing, and then having the conversation with my husband about, sort of part-time working idea of it. Do we both reduce our hours financially? What makes more sense? Because at the moment, I'm on a secondment now that actually my salary is more than my husband.
Okay.
But by the time I go back to maternity leave, I'll be on a substantive post, and then we swapped back around again. But there's not much in it though, So it's a case of we're actually going to have to sit here and do the sum of the work out. Who's in what? I mean, this is so ridiculously geeky, but what tax bracket? What
You've got to.
in terms of your take-home pay? If I drop one day, what does that look like? If I, and literally sit and work out the maths of it, because I'm certainly not someone who's desperate for it. It has to be the mother's role. Right. I don't feel like that at all. It's as long as there's a parent.
Sure.
He's perfectly capable of looking after his own son or daughter. I've absolutely every faith in that. So that's certainly when we get to that stage of, okay, right, return to work time. What is that actually going to look like? Is it going to be part-time, or am I going to be the full-time one, or is there both of us a bit of part-time, and how do we work it? And yeah, it'll be an interesting jigsaw.
Bit of a minefield.
Absolutely.
Jigsaw is a good word. That was a good description of how you've not made the jigsaw yet. You haven't even created the pieces yet. But that's the future for you to create that picture, that new jigsaw. I like that. I'm gonna use that in the future.
I'm very lucky. I've got willing grandparents as well who've offered 2 days childcare, so that's a godsend.
Yes.
And it really is just by chance. Dan is the youngest of 6, and we've all got the grandkids. So on that side, this one's just like, meh, we'll probably forget its name. Whereas on that side, it's the first grandchild, so everyone's just beside themselves at the thought of the next generation coming.
Of course.
Mum and my stepdad are just absolutely, champing at the bit to meet this Wayne. So they're very excited and looking forward to kind of active childcare and stuff. So that we were very fortunate that we've got that option.
Yeah.
We can utilise that. But as you said, that's another jigsaw piece that we've got to try and work out, because they're both retired and they have earned their retirement, and I'm really keen not to become this parent that goes, there you go, raise my child.
We took that consideration in, as again, Claire, you've offered so many times to look after our kids and have them more.
I'm starting to take it personally.
I'm not. You've not offered enough. No, they've and we've basically, we didn't take people up on their offer, and we said we had to consciously say, like, we really need to let people take the wheel a little bit, because they're going to stop asking, they're going to stop offering, because we're constantly going, no, it's okay. Keep my baby over here, thank you. So we haven't asked for a lot of help, but we were lucky we had a lot of input from Paula's parents, and they were just constantly here as part of the process. And my sister was involved, who we've had on the show, and so I was lucky to have that support network. It sounds like you're lucky too to have a very decent support network, and it is finding that balance again. Everything seems to be about balance, but finding that balance of how much you let go, how much you don't let go, when's the right time for you as a person, when's the right time in the situation of the puzzle pieces falling together. I'm using this whole analogy, I'm running with it.
You like it?
I like it, it's my new thing. But you touched on it a little bit, was your kind of, you don't know yet how you're going to be when the baby comes along, if you're going to be like, yes, this is me, I'm mum now, I'm embracing that fully 100%, or if you're going to kind of miss that identity of your profession and your, like, which way you're going to go with that. Again, we'll come back to you in May and we'll have that conversation. I kind of struggled that as well. I've got a unique perspective because obviously I'm full-time dad here. Paula is the one that went back to work, and I ended up being full-time caregiver. So I do know that again about balance, but start a podcast, that helps. Creative things like that. But it's difficult to find your identity, or you feel like you're losing it and you're kind of grasping at that over and over again. So there's a definite balance thing, and it was interesting from my point of view, having lived through that, listening to you talk about you're not sure which way that's going to fall for you. Is it going to be a big decision process? So I'm looking forward to see how you cope with that and just how you manage that and how that works out, because I think that's an interesting point of view to take, having lived through it myself.
I love when you tell the story about always want to see yourself as being the cool uncle, and then literally as soon as your firstborn arrived, you speak about like a sort of light bulb and just
this is why I'm here.
Going back. Yeah. And obviously, having not lived through that, I can't relate, but I find it fascinating. And whether, Claire, you'll go through something similar, or it'll be great to know. So yeah, May the 1st, it's in the calendar.
Well, that's actually my birthday. So if you have
your
child on my birthday and stealing all my thunder, there'll be problems. Or it'll connect us and bond us.
What else do you want to cover? What else?
Nesting. I want to talk about nesting and baby proofing. I thought that would be interesting, having seen some of your posts again. So I have a little bit of insider knowledge on before this question was even posed. But Claire, how is your nesting and baby proofing going on? What are you doing?
As far as I'm aware, nesting is apparently meant to be, just before the baby comes and all this kind of thing. I've been nesting since we moved into this house. This is just one big nest. And that's why we bought the house. It's the forever family home. Moved from, so I had our first house, 2-bedroom. Dan moved in with me. We were there for a year and a half, and then the move was to get the big one, the umpteen bedrooms that we were going to fill with the family and all that kind of thing. So pretty much since we moved in, that whole process has been about nesting, and all the decisions that we've made in the house have been based on there will be young children here soon. So don't spend too much money on that room, it'll just get rid. Or like, you can spend lots of money in there, but they're not getting in that room, and just sort of establishing these sort of rules as we go.
Sure.
But I don't know then if that's going to ramp up to some sort of nth degree in the latter weeks of my pregnancy. I don't know, but certainly, the kids' room's pretty much ready, and that was just aside from the fact that when we did the bedrooms, we did all the bedrooms at the same time, so that was it made sense to have that. But in terms of stuff, people have just gifted us so much because they are further along in their family journey. So my friend just gave us their crib, a big solid mamas and papas number that would have cost us 250 quid new. They're like, do you want that crib? Because our wee one's now in our first bed. I'm like, aye, I will, thanks very much.
Now I understand your decision making.
Yeah.
Wait to be the last and wait for all the stuff.
Learn from everyone's mistakes.
Are you suggesting we made mistakes, Claire? We're going to have a chat about this.
So yeah, I mean, all those kind of things that people say, oh, is baby's room ready? I'm like, it's been ready for months. Like it was pretty much good to go. And as I say, we've just, clothing wise, I mean, I actually bought this child. I bought one of those wee grow, like sleeping bag things.
The grow bags are great.
Yeah,
we use them the whole time. That's the best thing. That would be my tip for all new parents. Get grow bags. Don't bother with blankets. Always a grow bag.
What's a grow bag?
It's like a sleeping bag for babies. So it goes only to about chest height as a sleeping bag, and then it's got little straps like dungarees that go over. Then they kind of pin. And it's brilliant. It's like wearing a sleeping bag. It's so good, and I would suggest do never go down the blanket route. Grow bags is the way forward for everyone. We tried to keep Jackson in the grow bag till he was 7, and they don't make him that big.
That's what you're talking custom made.
Honestly, you can get them to like their proper like 5 or 6 kind of size. You can get them, but you have to get them from America because they kind of keep it going longer. But we were so lucky with that because my mum lives in Florida that she was like, I found this one. I didn't even know they made them this big. We were like, we love you, Grandma. Bring them over.
Age 32.
Exactly. This one's for you, Ryan. Yay! So honestly, grow bags. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'd forgotten all about the wonder of grow bags. They have to be added.
Yeah. And that's literally, I have bought a grow bag. All the clothing and everything has all been sort of second-hand stuff that people have just gone, there you go, there's a crate of 0 to 3. And, for all the time that they're in them, you know, like I absolutely understand that thing where mum's going, you want to look at the little tiny clothes and all. I get it, right? Fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's all just sitting there, and they just throw up on it, and it gets chucked in the wash, and there's 5 of them a day, and I don't care if they're pink or blue, you know. One of my friends is very sort of traditional gender colours.
Sure.
A boy and a girl, and he's always in blue, she's always in pink. And so she gave me a thing. She was like, so it doesn't matter what you have, you're covered. And I was like, honestly, if you think that I'll not put my potential son in a fuchsia pink onesie for him just to vomit all over, you're like, you don't know me. I have no shame in that. Like, the baby doesn't care.
No, the baby doesn't care.
As long as it's warm, I do not care. So yeah, I suspect if I hadn't been in the fortunate position that I am of being gifted all these things, then yeah, I would be on like mega nesting duty. But yeah, we've been very lucky in that we've been gifted a lot of stuff, and just sort of slowly over the pregnancy things have sort of built up, and I've not really had to do that much. In the new year, I'll be the buggy and the car seat.
Again, though, I would advise, and this is just my own personal opinion, try and get that secondhand or from someone if you can, because. Pardon?
Not allowed a second-hand car seat unless you can vouch that it's not been in an accident.
Oh yeah, well, I understand. But the buggy, definitely. We got the travel system, and that's the best thing that we ever did as well. Definitely go. Do you know what we saw, and we wish we'd seen it earlier on in our life, was the Duna car seat, which is a car seat takes out and turns into a buggy.
So, no way! Like a transformer.
You lift it out and the wheels drop.
Hey, it's Paul. Thank you so much for checking it live.
So you don't even have to have a second.
Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get podcasts or on YouTube.
We considered it for a second.
Check out our website for the latest updates. Life
is sponsored by that company. Is that what you're?
We are not, but we should look into that. But we definitely looked into that when we had Marisa. We had a second, and we were just like, there's no point. We still got all the stuff from before with Jackson. Like, why would we go out and buy a brand new system? It's not a cheap system. But I was just like, that would have changed our lives the first time round. Because you don't need all the, like, babies. If you're not aware that anyone watching or listening to this, babies have more stuff than anybody else on the planet. Like, you do not travel light when you go anywhere. You've got there's always changing bags, there's always extra bags of stuff, there's always baby wipes, there's always something in the boot of your car. You're gonna have to buy an estate car. You need the buggy, the massive buggy. Sometimes if you're planning to be out for long periods of time, you have the buggy, but you also have the pram part of the buggy if you're taking it out as a system because kids got to sleep. And you've also got the car seat, so you've got 3 different styles of travel system all going with it. Honestly, like, you do not travel light with a baby, but any child. But it's better now. We only have the baby wipes now. That's where we've got to. But before, yeah, it does lull away. It erodes over time the stuff that you have to have. But as honestly, like, it was a major task traveling around with a kid if you want to be prepared, or you think you want to be prepared. That's the first thing as well. Yeah. They can be over prepared, which is probably what we were. But
good. By all accounts, good.
To have and not need.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Always be prepared. The one thing I did want to touch on as well, I know I speak a lot on these things, but it was just
why we gave you a microphone.
I know, thank you for that. Yeah. It's like, why do we have guests? Just chat. Just that whole thing about dressing your kid up. You were just talking about baby grows and things like that. We had that as well the first time round, where we thought we needed all these clothes. We thought we needed all this stuff. And I know I've just gone on about how much stuff you have, but that's more like the buggies and the things when you're going out of the house. Inside the house, you need nappies and a baby grower and several baby growers, but that's about it. So like for the first like almost 2 years, that kid does not need to be dressed up, does not need to be having all the best stuff, does not need to be wearing I loved dressing up Jackson in hoodies and little shoes, and like I love that whole thing.
Why do you buy baby shoes?
Exactly. We started buying socks that looked like shoes, so they had little prints on them. So they were good. Just all these little hints and tips that people do tell you, and you're like, whatever, yeah. baby grows and nappies and wipes. The rest is just extra stuff. So clothing wise, you will be gifted loads of things, but we gave away things with tags on them because we never got to them. They were never used because you're so tired and you're so preoccupied in keeping this little bundle of joy alive that what they're wearing maybe is important once or twice a year. Like when you're like, I'm going to take a photo for Halloween, they're going to be a pumpkin. I'm going to take a photo for Christmas because they're going to look like they're going to a party. And maybe three or four times, maybe a handful of times a year, you're going to have that moment where you're like, yeah, my baby's going to look awesome. Every time in between, you're going to be like, I cannot be bothered to make my baby look awesome. As long as it stays alive and I'm awake, that's great.
And that's for the parent. It's not for the baby.
No.
They don't want to look like a pumpkin. They don't know what a pumpkin is. They're 4 months old or whatever. You don't need to look like an elf for Christmas Day. They don't know what Christmas is.
Yeah, the baby's first Christmas all plastered across their chest, and you're like, yeah, look at me.
So they can look in the mirror. Facebook. Oh, look, it's Christmas. Oh wait a minute, no, they can't read either.
It's about social media. Social media's got a lot to answer for in that respect that you want, and also the grandparents, like because obviously they don't live close by for us. So it was like we need to take photos for grandma. We need to take photos for these people. They need to see how well we're doing as parents. We're keeping it together.
Basically, proving your worth as a parent.
Just proving my existence as a parent. Yes, exactly that.
I know the Scottish government provides some sort of baby box, doesn't it? For to new parents. What's in this free baby box?
Loads. I've got a leaflet stuck in my fridge with the contents list on it. You get a serious load of stuff. I was one of those people that was quite sceptical about the baby box when it was first mentioned. I thought, when it was first sort of talked about, we were Dan and I even seen each other that point, I don't know. But I remember thinking, like, I'll not register for one because, like, I won't need it. Like, there's some people who are underprivileged and they've not got that support network.
Sure.
Whatever. And I was like, that's great. Let them crack on, kind of thing. And it's been really sort of it's taken off from there. And the midwife said, so you register for your baby box, you just send this wee thing off or whatever. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And I think it'll arrive, it'll probably after Christmas, I think mine will appear. But I've seen like my friends' ones as well, and they're massive. It's not just a sort of wee cardboard box of like, they've thrown together a couple of baby grows in a bottle and, off you go. It's a really well thought out system. And I'm delighted that they can sleep in the box because that's another thing. Oh,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Because I've had a lot of people going, oh, you'll need a Moses basket. Oh, you'll need this. I'm like, no, I've got a box.
There's a box on the way. And I've got drawers as well. Like that used to work for people.
I could sleep in there. That's fine with me. I'm not precious about putting my baby in a box. Yeah, you get so much stuff in it, like the clothes-wise, but equipment-wise, and it's a really good starter for 10, I have to say. I'm really supportive of the initiative, and I'm quite happy to put my hand up and say that I'm sort of like, oh, we're not needing that.
Yeah.
It is nice that it's just for everybody. There's no questions asked about it. You don't need to justify it. It's just, you're pregnant, here you go. We think every family should have this start at least. It's like,
sure.
It's lovely.
I don't think we took it up actually.
Did you not?
I don't think we did. I don't know if it was a bigger thing. Obviously, Jackson's 8 now, so so it wasn't as well. I don't think it was as well kitted out as what you're suggesting now. And I think we got a baby bag maybe, and obviously you're not going to put a baby in a bag. But I think it was
probably not a good idea.
I think it was like the CDs for relaxing, and there was literature and things, and there was a couple of useful bits and pieces, but not the extent of what Claire has just described. Sure.
Claire, we touched upon this earlier, and I think it's really important that we talk about this now, given that now, time of recording, late December, we're still in the midst of COVID and all everything that's come about as a result. Do you feel that your pregnancy, your journey has been adversely affected? Have there been things that you've been unable to do, or maybe things that you have been able to do as a result?
Yeah, certainly, as you said, we touched on it earlier, work-wise, it's worked out. There's been benefits for sure. I've not had to commute. That would have been really tricky. haven't had to say to everybody, you know, go and please be discreet as I run to the bathroom for the millionth time that day or whatever. You know, there's been none of that side of things. I've not had to spend lots of money on like work maternity clothes because I've done the usual COVID thing and just had a jumper and my jammies in my bottom half and nobody knows.
I'm doing it right now.
So
is that true, Paul?
It is. Sorry.
I went and I had a shower, I groomed and everything. I'm wearing proper clothes just for you guys. Just for you.
Yeah, we did the top off.
Half the time I'm in a hoodie, you know, or a work meeting, nobody cares.
No.
So those kind of little kind of trivial things have made my life easier, let's be honest. It has been a wee bit trickier in terms of sort of the restrictions at the hospital and antenatal appointments and things, just because they change so frequently, and trying to sort of keep on top of that of what we're allowed to do now, because for a wee while it was looking like my husband wouldn't get to the 12-week scan, and we actually ended up paying for a private scan around about 8 weeks because I had a wee bit of bleeding, and I phoned in and stuff and they were like, you know, I was like, well, you know, just keep an eye kind of thing. And I'd spoken to my friend who's a midwife and she said, we would have got you in if it wasn't for COVID. She's on a different health board, so she's like, I can't speak for Forth Valley's kind of procedure. She was like, but from what you're describing, we'd have got you in for an early scan. She's like, I think it's because of COVID that they're not. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm not loving that. And
No.
the fact that at that point as well, I thought, if there is something wrong, I don't want to find that out by myself. And at that point, that was what the script was that all antenatal appointments, including your scans, was face masks, etc. But that was, you were it, and that was the only thing. So we had a blather about it, and it's like 50 quid for somewhere in Cumbernauld, you know, to go. That he could come as well, and I thought, let's just find out. And everything was fine, obviously, you know, so thank goodness, and that was the case. So, and then by the time we got to the 12-week scan, he could come anyway, so he's actually not missed any of the scans.
Well, that's good because again, as the male in the story of a pregnancy, those are one of those moments where you actually involved, like it's like, oh, yay, I get to see our baby for the first time, and those are big moments. And we even again, Claire, you know this, but we went to get a 3D scan done just because, like, first baby, we were like, oh wow, we should totally do that, that'll be cool. And just those extra little experiences that you can do as a couple, they do kind of enrich the whole experience. Well, they did for me anyway. I don't know if Dan feels the same. I'm sure he does. But yeah, those moments, those scans, those things where you go together, what we take for granted, and this stupid thing that's come along and said, no, everybody has to do everything on their own because you can't be with people. And
really, I understand. I certainly do understand because it's a hospital setting, and that was obviously such a high risk area.
Yeah.
But in terms of kind of physical distancing side of things, you know, like, you could do it. There's plenty of room in this, you know. So thankfully, as I say, by the time we got to my point of being 12 weeks, that had shifted, so you could have one other person. So that has worked, but that's just been sheer luck.
Yeah.
If I had got pregnant 2 weeks earlier, it wouldn't have been at my 12-week scan. So that's not been the case for everybody's experience, which is a shame.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird going in when you've got your mask on and you're trying to sort of talk about your health and stuff, and consider, especially when, you know, they're busy taking your blood pressure and you're sitting there half your top off, you know, and you're getting sun or whatever, but you put your mask on, and they're prodding away at you, feeling the baby and everything. But I would say I've been quite lucky. It hasn't overly impacted on the sort of general kind of pregnancy journey of it. Certainly in terms of the labour birth side of things, potentially that's when things might get a wee bit trickier. Because, as you were saying, you know, we've got Christmas coming up, things are being relaxed for a few days. I'm fairly certain January is going to be as much of a full lockdown as
well, that's how we anticipate it as well. Paula has said the same thing, that she reckons we'll be in lockdown basically immediately after the bubble period, and
and you don't know how long that's going to last. So I mean, I'm 40 weeks is sort of mid-February.
Okay.
But your term from 37, so your term period is from 37 weeks to 42. So really, anywhere within that 5-week window is baby time.
Wow.
They say about 40 weeks, and it's like, oh, you went at 39, you went early. You weren't early. You were term.
You're probably right bang in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Like 40 is just an average.
Yeah.
So a window. So if I do go at the earlier side of that term, then potentially we could be back to, the previous restrictions. In which case, like, oh, okay, how's that going to go? So we're actually, at the moment, we're having discussions about the potential for maybe doing like a home birth.
Oh wow!
Because we live so close to the hospital, for one thing. We can you can literally see it out the back garden. So if anything were to go wrong, we'd probably be at the hospital before the team was ready. It's not, that side of things is that's not a concern. But genuinely thinking about that, because, well, for one thing, I suspect there'll be quite a lot of pregnancies around about January, February.
COVID pregnancies.
COVID babies.
And then months prior to that. So there are a lot of lockdown babies on their way. So I think the world's going to be pretty busy.
Might be.
And just sort of that, to take that anxiety out of what are we allowed to do? What's the restrictions now? Is it changed in the last 24 hours?
Sure.
It's your house, you don't have that. And you would still get a midwife and things like that. But anyway, it's not something that we're set on, but it's something that we're considering. And I don't think that would ever have been on the cards if it wasn't for COVID and lockdown. I think I like to go to we've got like an alongside maternity unit, which has got like fairy lights and birthing pools and all that nice stuff. I think I probably would have opted for that option available, and then and failing that, then the hospital fine. Would never really have considered the kind of home birthing side of things, but the sort of general anxious vibe that the hospital has at the moment because of COVID and the ever-changing restrictions, which, as I say, seem to, on a weekly basis, you get an update to see what's available now or what's not.
No, you can't do this, now you can, yes.
This is okay now, but that is
I'm very sorry, we had an
interruption.
A visitor to the table there. I was like trying to shoo her away without anyone noticing. Sorry, cat on the table.
Claire, I need to ask about a home birth. How does that work? What are the practicalities of a home birth?
I'll find out on Wednesday when I have my.
Okay.
No, I do have an appointment on Wednesday to actually talk it out with a midwife as to what it would really look like. But generally speaking, the idea is that you get assigned up to 2 midwives, so one for when you're in active labour and then one for birthing time.
Okay.
You sort of set up your own space, and we probably rent a birthing pool so that there's definitely kind of access to something like that.
Sure.
And you just try and make it as calm and chilled as humanly possible. And the midwife comes with a gas and air. You're allowed that. We can bring Entonox to suck on when things are getting heavy. And midwife just comes and monitors you, keeps an eye on what's going on. If at any point, because they are so risk averse, if at any point there's a thinking this isn't going to go well, they will recommend that you transfer to hospital. Okay. Which I assume I would go with, if they're saying, I think we're going to need some extra help here or whatever. Sure. Enough, let's get to Forth Valley.
If it's just in the back garden, I think it's probably,
I'll just walk. Don't
bother with
it might help the process along.
It might.
I'd take a leisurely walk over. Yeah,
just make sure you make it. Don't get stuck in between.
Baby in the car park.
No.
And then if for whatever reason you end up going to the hospital, then they pick it up from there.
Okay.
But otherwise, the idea is that if things are going smoothly, the midwife will then call for the sort of second midwife of, okay, it's game time. Head down, and and then they do pretty much everything else that they do in the hospital. So they check the baby's okay and cut the cord and make sure you birth the placenta, all these things, and make sure everyone's hunky dory. Make sure if you're breastfeeding, then they help you with that. But the idea is that because you're in a calmer, theoretically, environment, you're less likely to need more interventions, which tend to lead to more interventions. So, if, for example, if you're induced, your contractions or waves or whatever you want to call them, they tend to be more intense because your body's not creating them. You know, your body's actually not necessarily ready or wants to have this baby out. So if you get the syntocin, which is this basically synthetic oxytocin, that gets your induction moving and it basically makes your body contract. But it is forcing it to contract rather than your body going, it's baby time.
Ready, yeah.
They tend to be quite intense. So you tend to end up with more women opting for an epidural, understandably, because they're like, well, just get that into me. I don't want to feel any of this.
Yep.
And then when you've got an epidural, you tend to have, there's more tears and things because you're not in control of how you're moving things. And so, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. You know, if that's how your birth goes and that's what you opt for.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's your birth story. But the idea is that to try and keep away from the sort of things that cause the anxiety and the adrenaline and all the things that potentially cause more complications, and then you end up going down that route of, all right, okay, well, I've had this. Work your way through the timeline of medical interventions, but it might work that way anyway. Because there's so many things that make it inadvisable for a home birth. You know, like so say, for example, I could be all set up and we're going to have a home birth and everybody's on board with it and everyone's grand. At my last antenatal appointment, my blood pressure might be through the roof. Nah, no chance. Not risking it. Like, no. I could still say, I'll take the risk. You know, that would be within my rights to say, no, I'm aware my blood pressure's high. I still want to do a home birth. But they would probably highly recommend not to, and to keep and monitor and all this kind of stuff. So it's not a given either, to be honest. None of it is. But it's certainly an option that, as I say, we wouldn't have considered at all if it wasn't for the wonders of COVID and everything it's turned into.
It's amazing that, as you say, sort of the doors that's closed, but also the doors that it's opened, and it sort of changed your perspective, and something you wouldn't even have considered before is now a highly plausible option. So fascinating. Thank you so much.
It is. It's fascinating how there has been a lot of positives from COVID, and not for anybody who's been affected by it directly, but for the kind of the aftermath that we're all experiencing. With the extra time off, not off work, but with the less traveling and the babies in the first place, as you were talking about COVID babies.
It was always going to happen, let's be honest.
It was. I mean, when everybody's stuck in the house, nothing to do, Paul. I mean, Netflix only goes so far.
Everything's closed. You're right.
I'm not gonna. It's so cool to come out with it.
It's been fascinating. It's been such an eye-opener, and
it's been a treat to actually get somebody who's in the middle of the process as well. Like we have obviously spoken to several people now, and we're quite far on in the season, and to have the retrospective of birth and to have the planning beforehand and the hoping to get pregnant kind of stories, it feels really nice to have that full story now where we've got somebody going through the actual process in real time, and obviously we're going to have cameras at the birth, so that's going to be we'll be live podcasting that day.
Can you imagine?
Could we get someone to agree to that? We need to look into that, Paul.
Yeah,
like an actual live podcast.
But I don't know if I would be comfortable with that. There's the truth. You can you know what, you do it. I'm good with that.
That would be your decision making made from because a lot of the reason for this being our first season was because Paul still is on that fence of undecided. And this whole podcast series might be the decider for Paul of whether or not he goes down that route with. So it's kind of nice to get somebody who is one as level-headed as you, Claire. So nice for that. And then two, who probably echoes a lot of the same thoughts and feelings that Paul has, because again, you're in similar professions and
that was a big part of it.
Considerations to make. And I know for Paul, because we've spoke about this countless times, that the professional side of things is a big deal for both him and Lauren. just trying to make that balance again and not losing too much of their free time. And like, obviously, like I was like, that's a fallacy, Paul. There's no free time. Like,
did say that.
I was like, you're dreaming if you think there's an even like a so. But it's really nice to have you on, and just for me, on a personal level, to see more of you, because I think this is the longest we've ever had an actual conversation together. Like ourselves, because obviously Paul is always involved in politics. Yeah, just leave. If you could just leave, and we'll continue chatting. Hi, this is Ryan. Thanks for checking out Life Is It Just Me. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube for the video version. And come over and check out our website, which is lifeisitjust.me, for all our latest info and updates. And thanks again. We'll see you soon.